Hi, good evening. We are a team of consultants that are going to advise Lion Group on their future investment in Southeast Asia. So let me introduce you to my team. First of all, I'm Siti Tan, I'm the IT expert. And later, it will be followed by Mayuri, who is a financial expert. And Edwin will talk about the economic factors. He's also a financial expert. And we also have a managing experts from Seagate, and she is Miss Tu. And lastly, our CEO, our consultancy company CEO, Martin Tan, will present to you our conclusion. All right. So our agenda today is to first of all give you a background of Lion's company, because we believe that without knowing the culture and the background of the company, it's very difficult for us to make assessment on their investment, because we don't know what is their vision and mission. So it's important to know the vision of the company. Okay, after the introduction, we will present to you the type of market analysis available, and it will follow by the assessment of different economic parameters, and we also substantiate our analysis with two factors, which is infrastructure and education. And lastly, of course, is the conclusion. Okay, let me give you a brief background of our customer, Lion Group. This company has been established since 1795, which is now about 224 years of history. And they are based in New Zealand and Australia. So their focus is producing alcohol, dairy products, and about 50 years ago, Kirin actually bought over this company. So this company is a subsidiary of Kirin right now. So from the pictures, you can see that they produce the dairy products as well as the alcohol. So how does the company looks like? This is the logo of the company, and you can see their logo is actually looking for the long term. So the management actually, when they do any kind of decisions, they want to plan something for the long term. So what's the Lions Group mission? They want to help people to be sociable and live well. This is their one of their very important missions. So by producing the liquor, healthy liquor, they can achieve this objective. So when when they produce the liquor, or when they run the business, they will treat it very lightly, in the sense that they are very environmental friendly. Lastly, although they are the alcohol company, they want to grow the positive impact. So by healthy consumptions, it actually helps to people to socialize better, and some medical reports even show that consumption of alcohol actually is good to the health. Okay, a very important thing is that we want to know the details of the types of investment that Lion Group is going to make. So this is what we have gathered from them. Okay, they are planning to build a refinery plant to produce the craft beer and fine wine. Okay, it's not the dairy, but it's a beer and wine, so it's an alcohol product. And the products are primarily want to export to the growing middle class population in Asian market. And the budget that they have allocated is 100 million USD, and the capacity that they told us that they plan to produce is 100 million liter of beer and wine per quarter. A very important thing for us to take note is that due to the revolution of technology, they want their newly built plant to be smart manufacturing plant, which is incorporate all the aspect of industrial 4.0. Of course, we also have asked from them what kind of headcount that they are looking for. So they told us that they plan to hire 550 employees, which is 50 executive, 150 engineers, and followed by 300 technicians. And they only have 50 direct laborers. You can from here you can see that they want to build a smart plant which are highly automated. That's why they need more highly skilled people like engineers and technicians. Okay, so four nations has been selected to be their potential investment location, which is Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia. In order to do a detailed analysis of where to pick from, we need to run through the best analysis. But as a economy experts or our company, we are being asked to focus on the economy factors. All right. Right now, let my colleagues present to you the 5 economics criteria. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucity. I'm one of the finance analysts in the company. Therefore, I was given a task to actually analyze some of the economic performance criteria in the company. Before I get into the topic and speak about what are the criteria that we will be looking into, uh, there was some of the investment budget that we have to look into. For example, USD 100 million has was looked into, and then we were also focusing on Industrial 4.0, and it is a way for us to get connected with the in a global which is eventually developing and also more technology based countries. And therefore the first criteria that I would be looking into would be GDP. Why do we have to assess GDP? GDP is a way for us to understand the economic stability of a company. If an investor would like to invest in a company, they have to first look into the GDP of a country. It is a way for them to understand if a company is undergoing any recession or crisis, which will allow them or stop them from actually getting into the country to invest or start up a company. From the chart that I have analyzed, it shows that Vietnam has a good GDP, whereby it has eventually attracted the confidence of the investors to invest or set up a company in the particular country. Whereas for Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand, it clearly shows that their GDP level is quite low. And when the GDP level is quite low, it eventually brings a less confidence towards the investor to eventually invest or set up a company. They will eventually go to a different country, like for example, like Thailand. According to my own personal opinion, I would feel that Vietnam has a very good GDP compared to the other three countries. Look, okay, the next criteria that has to be looked into is unemployment rate. Unemployment rate is one of the critical issues which is happening throughout the world. And unemployment rate is basically because a lot of individuals who have come out of universities or have completed their studies, but then they were they are passively or actively finding a job, but they were not hired in any companies due to the economic conditions. Not only that, uh, there are two types of unemployment rate. One is high and one is low unemployment rate. It clearly, from the chart or the data analysis that we have interpreted, it clearly shows that Thailand has the lowest unemployment rate, and Vietnam can be acceptable as it also has a low unemployment rate compared to the other two countries, which is Indonesia and Malaysia. Indonesia has a high unemployment rate, and also Malaysia has a high unemployment rate which is 4.18, and Malaysia is 3.41 in the year 2017. And the unemployment rate for Indonesia and Malaysia is quite high, and it is increasing for the past 10 years, but whereas Thailand and Vietnam's unemployment rate is still low, and it shows that in these two countries that there are a lot of talented and skillful employees which has been given the opportunity to work in the companies. Not only that, uh, if there is a very high employment rate in a country, it shows that the government, it will give a burden to the government whereby they have to eventually uh, uh, they can't be collecting extra taxes, and also they have to subsidize all these unemployment individuals as they have to keep spending and also set up more job opportunities for all these unemployment individuals.
Okay, thanks to Mary, and I'm Edwin. I'll be continuing for the three other indicators in terms of economics. One of it would be inflation rate, and followed by debt to GDP, and also the last one would be exchange rate. So for inflation, it's actually defined as the increase in prices of goods and services over time. It's actually an economic term that people use where they need to spend more in terms of value in money to purchase the things that they actually purchased before. So inflation actually reduces the purchasing power of each unit of their currency. So little bit theoretical part for inflation would be there are two causes for inflation. One would be demand pull inflation, and this happens when the demands outpace the supply for goods or services. The buyers were very keen to buy the products where they are willing to pay higher prices to buy it. And another causes for inflation would be cost push inflation, and that would happen when supply is restricted but the demand remains in market. So from our observation, we can see that from the data that Thailand has the most consistent and lowest inflation rate compared to other three countries in Indonesia, Malaysia, and Vietnam. In 2008, it shows the highest inflation rate of Thailand, which is at 5.47%. However, through the following years, we can observe and gradually decrease till one of its lowest record, which is reaches to a negative 0.09, 2007. As for Malaysia and Vietnam, both these countries actually suffered unstable inflation rate through the 10 years record. It's like obtain unpredictable inflation rate, which is not so reliable if Lions company are to set up their manufacturing plant in those companies. As for Malaysia, it's actually the second to consistency between the four countries, as its highest is suffered during the financial crisis of 2018 and later on ranges between 0.58 till 3.2. So from my analysis for this part, Thailand would be a much suitable aspect to actually set up a company by Lion, and it seems to fit the criteria for the country as it has the lowest inflation rate among the three companies. So inflation rate, if it rises above 3%, it may trigger a rise in cost and also uncertainty of demand and supply in the market. It can further cause Lion company to suffer more costs such as manual costs, wage payment costs, uncertainty, and also a decline in international competitive. So continue by debt to GDP is actually a ratio which measures the country's public debt to its GDP. So by comparing what the country owes with what it produces, the debt to GDP ratio indicates its ability to pay back its debt. This is actually usually expressed in percentage, where it could also interpret as the number of years needed for a country to pay back its debt if the GDP is dedicated entirely to debt repayment for the country. So actually economists had not agreed to a specific debt to GDP ratio as being ideal and instead typically focus on the sustainability of certain debt levels. If a country can continue to pay interest on its debt levels without refinancing or even harming its economic growth, it is generally considered to be stable. So if a country is unable to pay its debt, it could cause financial panic in the domestic and international market. The higher the debt to GDP ratio, the less likely the country will pay back its debt, and the higher its risk for default. So importantly, a study by the World Bank found that if the debt to GDP ratio of a country exceeds 77% for a period of time, it will show slow economic growth. And from our observation, we can see that actually in terms of debt to GDP, we can see that sorry, from debt to GDP, we can see that for Indonesia, they suffered the lowest, and followed by Thailand, Malaysia, and lastly Vietnam. So although these figures might be something for those countries, but it's actually less important from our side for Lion Company to actually evaluate based on debt to GDP criteria. So follow on would be lastly the economic factor for exchange rate. So exchange rate is actually the value of one nation's currency versus the currency of another nation's or economic growth. So there are three types of exchange rate. The first one will be free floating. Free floating, which means that the exchange rate rises and falls due to the changes in foreign exchange market. So like forex. Second would be restricted currency. Some countries have restricted currency limiting their exchange within the country's borders. Also, a restricted currency can have its value set by its government. And lastly, which our country, Malaysia, has used previously would be currency peg. So this country will peg its currency to that of another nation. For instance, Hong Kong dollar is pegged to USD in the range of 7.75 to 7.85. So this means that the value of Hong Kong dollar to US will remain within this range. So from our observation, we can see that Vietnamese dong is actually on a rise. Means that dong is actually a weakening currency. As for Thai baht, it's actually declining, so that for each USD change towards Thai baht will be lesser and lesser. Ringgit Malaysia and also Indonesia rupiah will be a much stable one, but it's also declining a little bit. So the exchange rate is accessed to actually determine the volatility and also the stability of the company or the country. It's actually help or hurt specific interests within the countries, such as import or export. So from our analysis, we can actually determine that Vietnam is having a weaker currency. Therefore, it's actually better for Lion Company to actually invest in Vietnam in terms of its exchange rate. So usually business actually uses USD for international transaction. So for every one USD, it will be actually exchanged for more dongs. So it's actually good for Lion Company as a setup, as they need more funds to actually restructure, build their company or build their manufacturing plant, and also in terms of infrastructure such as operations and also equipments and machineries that the company needs for its operation, then this might be a plus point for them. So they would not need to actually pay more wages to employees too, given the low exchange rate of the country. So this is my part. I'll actually pass on to Jojo for the following criteria.
Hi, I'm Jojo. I'm the manufacturing expert, and I'll be presenting additional economy performance criteria. We have two additional economy performance criteria, and they are infrastructure and education. Infrastructure, I will cover the logistic, electricity, water, and broadband. And for education, there will be literacy, numeracy, and skill. Let's look at the logistic. Logistic in terms of the LPI index, which is a logistic performance index, which cover customs, transportation, international shipment, logistic competence, tracking and tracing, and also the timeliness. Thailand is the best in year 2018 and followed by Vietnam. Next, let's look at the electrical pricing. From the table, you can see that actually Malaysia provide the most affordable electricity. But all of these four countries, right, their electricity is inexpensive. Next is the electrical outage. Electrical outage is very important for this wine and beer maker company, because all the raw material will be scrapped if there is electrical interruption. So from the table, you can tell that actually Thailand offered the least electrical outage. Next is the water. The water bill. Water is the main resource required for this new refinery plant. By looking at the table, the cost is insignificant on the total expenditure in the long run, even though Thailand is the cheapest water among the countries. Next is a broadband. Why broadband is very important? Because this company is setting up the full automation and going to industrial 4.0. And next, let's look at the electrical outage. Thailand has the least electrical outage, and which is more than half less than Malaysia. Why electrical outage is so important? Because if there is an electrical interruption, all the raw material will need to be scrapped, and so we don't want this one to happen in that company. Next is the water. Let's look at the table. The table shows that the cost is significant on the total expenditure in the long run, and Thailand is the cheapest water among the countries. And why water is so important? Because water is the main resource required for this new refinery plant. Next is the broadband. Broadband is very important because this company is going to Industrial 4.0, and so internet is very important for the robotic to do their work. And by looking at the picture, looking at the table, it shows that Thailand provides the faster internet speed among the countries. However, the minimum bandwidth that is required for this dedicated internet connection is only 10 megabytes per second. All four countries meet the requirement, and the cost is affordable and insignificant for the total expenditure. Next is the education. Why education is important? Because in order to run the business, marketing, financial, human resource, production, and R&D is very important. And the leaders in all this function, they need to be talented. And this table is taken from World Economic Forum, and the comparison is among 130 countries. And in terms of literacy and the numeracy, Malaysia is ranked at 32nd, and Indonesia is at 64 among these 130 countries. Next is a skilled employee. High skilled employee is very important to take the role as in the management and also the engineering. High skilled employee means the employee that attended to the university, colleges, and also the technical school. So Malaysia is ranked at 48, and Thailand is ranked at 93rd. The difference is quite huge. And the medium skill employee is the employee that have a very fine, very, they have the skill, they work on this routine based work, and not so much on the decision making. In Thailand is ranked at 59, and Malaysia is ranked at 81st for this medium skill employee. In terms of the availability of the skilled employee, Malaysia is ranked at number 10, and followed by Indonesia, which is at 42nd. Next, I will pass this one to our CEO, Martin, to make the conclusion. Thank you.
Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, Thailand. Which country to invest? Hello everybody, my name is Martin Tan. I'm the CEO of the consultancy firm. Now I'm going to share with you what are the factors that lead us to choose which country will we eventually invest. First, GDP. I'm going to go through the critical factors. Of course, we have also chosen and determined what are the factors that are not so critical. In my presentation, I will only talk about the critical one. First, GDP. GDP is critical, we believe, is because it measures the total goods and services produced in a country and determine the health of the economy in that particular country. Vietnam ranked the highest, followed by Malaysia. The second critical factors we are looking at is inflation. Of course, the most favorable one is Thailand, followed by Malaysia. And what makes us think that inflation is important? Imagine this, the company were to invest a few $100 million in a country. If the things are getting more expensive the next year, of course, the ability of the company to buy will be getting lesser. So this is what we consider as critical. And third one would be logistics. Logistics is where the country itself is able to fill the logistic requirements. And based on the research we have done, countries seems to be equally favorable. Next one, electricity prices. This is critical because The refinery plant requires a lot of consumption of the electricity. And in this particular four countries, Malaysia seems to be the most affordable one because the next country that is more expensive country after it, that will be 10% more, and followed by another one will be 20% more. So that is the most affordable one. And next factor, electricity outage. You see, when a plant experiences electricity outage, if the disruption to the production line, if the line down, is a big impact to the country. Therefore, based on research we have done, Thailand seems to be the most favorable. Water price. Water price is also important. We have determined it because based on the research that we have done, Thailand it's about 20 US dollar per meter metric, and followed by Malaysia, which is 25 to 80 US dollar cents per meter metric. And the next one will be education. Education is very important because as we have more than 200 years of history, our client, land company, and they are really good in their training and development. No doubt Thailand and Malaysia rank the think when we think that employee is a driving force to keep the company and we value people. And moving on also, we look at, if we talk about education, no doubt that we are looking at high school employee. But I know that Malaysia is the highest in high skill and followed by Thailand. But if we were to look at medium skill employee, where we can allow the line company to train the medium skill employee to the high school employee, which they are really strong in training and development. We believe that's possible. So coming to two final countries that we have recommended to our client line company is Thailand or Malaysia. So looking at the big picture, all the pros and cons, all the analysis, I would say Thailand is the best country. The reason why is because it's a non-Muslim country. That's the first factor. The second factor is it has a very big market for a product to be marketed to the country. So with this, I would conclude that Thailand is the Thailand is the country we would strongly recommend to our client. Thank you very much. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you. Thomas.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So happy. Bye bye.